Hello, everyone. Welcome to Monday. Fantastic. We are going to first start with Russ, who has something to say.
Well, let's talk about Albert Pujols for a minute because he's 41 years old and he's hitting 390 in the spring, Mike. I mean, this is a guy that has never been on a list, has never been caught or anything like that. So there may be people that, are skeptical, but at the end of the day, for as long as he stays clean, this is a pretty remarkable career. I mean, again, we're talking about year 20. How many guys do you talk about in baseball that are around 20 years as at least a DH?
Well, all I can say is that if he hits like 310 again, then we know he visited, and he's from the Dominican Republic. Then he must have called up Bartolo Colon and asked him what place he went to for his. It wasn't the Ponce de Leon and the Fountain of Youth.
Well, but he has tailed off. Like, the one thing I'll say about him is, he went from his 40s to his 30s homers. Then he had 17, 28, went back to 40, 31, 23, 19, 23. Like, he's never getting over 30 again. And so he is in decline for what he used to be.
What I'm saying, Russ, is if all of a sudden he hits 320 after,
I get it.
The last 5 years or last 6 years, 244, 268, 241, 245, 244, 224. If all of a sudden he hits 290 and 30 home runs, then obviously I think
then we'd be skeptical. Right. But what I'm saying here is he looks like he's having a normal progression for a Hall of Fame player.
Sure.
And in this day and age, we don't get to see it a lot.
Yeah.
He's got 662 homers. He's got 2,100 RBIs.
Definitely a Hall of Famer.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's a lock for the Hall of Fame, 3,200 hits. Like, this is, I don't know if Pujols gets enough credit because of the era now that we're in, and we're always skeptical about players now.
Yeah, 3 MVPs, Rookie of the Year, World Series. Yeah, I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, no doubt. The only thing that prevents him from being a Hall of Famer is all of a sudden we discover that, he was juicing. And that's the thing. It's like
there is all this time so far, though, we have to say that.
There is a reason for fans to be skeptical of players based on everything that's going on right now. Any player. None of them have earned, it's sad that we have to go down this road, but it's like, I'm sorry, when guys like Rafael Palmeiro or Mark McGwire lie in front of Congress and say, oh no, we weren't doing anything, and then it's found that they were, taking more steroids than a racehorse, then I'm sorry. And everybody is a suspect.
Okay. I just wanted to, give him his due.
Yeah.
I get why what you're saying is a valid argument too. That's it.
Yeah, I get it. All right, let's get going. Here we go. Something's breaking right now as I was working on there. It's kind of moment that I wish I had 5 minutes, but I will. We'll start the show. You guys talk for a second, then I'm going to make a couple quick texts. Here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Monday, March 22nd, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and Monday is my 7th favorite day of the week.
That's Cohen from Sportology.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And I wanted to start somewhere today, and that you guys can talk about this for a second too, on what I think is going to be the hottest player of the trade deadline, which is coming up. Is like with a bullet, because we haven't really heard much about him until now, and that is Connor Garland, who I've talked to you guys about a lot. And before, as one of he's my favorite. I think he's the best player on the friggin' Arizona Coyotes. I know we've had that debate before, but I think Connor Garland is who is a Massachusetts kid. I think he is absolutely ridiculous. What he's good. He's an RFA with arbitration rights. So what the issue with him is, he's got good numbers for arbitration that could scare the hell out of Arizona. Like, he's almost a point of game player, and Arizona might not want to go there. So. This is a real, like, if this guy is really available right now, this is somebody who's not just a rental, but if you have the money and you want to start building a team, the tough thing about this for Arizona is this is the kind of guy that they absolutely should keep.
Well, that's what I mean. If he's available, it's the end of their franchise.
But I'm Russ, for what it's worth. He sounds like he's available.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but I am saying, to me, this signifies the end of their franchise if he is truly available.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not denying what you're saying there either on either side of that, because he really is one of those guys who it feels as if there's a strong possibility he's going to get dealt at this deadline.
Well, and the reason why he could get dealt is because right now he's making $775,000. He's got 25 points in 30 games. I believe that's leading the club.
Right.
So, if it's a normal organization, they're like, no way, we're going to lock up this guy long term. This organization, they're like, oh my God, we're going to have to pay him.
Right.
And that's the reality here. If that reaction from a dysfunctional organization is the reason why they're dysfunctional.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm a Coyotes fan, I'm not saying this should be the last straw, but I'm saying, I'm getting close to the end of my rope here because, aside from Keller and Chikrin and they did Schmaltz, but they dealt him. No, I'm thinking of no, they got Schmaltz from Chicago. The other Schmaltz I was thinking of, right? No, you're right, Schmaltz and also Dvorak. Those are the only guys that they've paid. I mean, that's it.
That's it.
And Ekman Larson, but
Ekman Larson too, yeah. But they did try and deal him though.
Right. I mean, he was asking out, and they couldn't oblige him. But this is the situation. The reason why he's so attractive in this market is because he's making $775 this year. For a team that's a contender, they can easily fit him under the cap.
Right, but they're going to have to pay him next year. He's going to get a decent salary. They know that.
And this is only his third year, so he's going to be, I believe he would be at least 2 more years, maybe 3 until he's a UFA. So this could be like a 1-year crawl towards free agency where after scoring 20 goals last year and scoring almost a point a game this year, he could get $4.5–5 million on a 1-year or a 2-year contract.
No, but I mean, even if you gave him 2 years at 3.75 per or 4 per, he would take that. You're telling me you can't afford that, the Coyotes? If the Coyotes can't afford that, then they're not an NHL team.
Right. So, I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer to sign him. But if the financial resources are so shaky that they can't sign him or they don't think he's worth that, then they're going to trade him. And what they might trade him.
We have to stop one thing.
Yeah.
There is no possibility that they can't think he's worth that because they drafted him in like the 5th round. They watched him develop this entire time, and they watched how good he is on the power play. There's no way they could say that last statement.
He's an interesting guy, Russ, because I was going to ask you that. Like, was this a guy you were aware of at all? Was he okay? So, because 5th round draft picks, I mean, it wouldn't be wrong for you not to be aware of them. You know what I mean? Like, this is like
right. He's a little on the smaller side. He was not known for playing well in his own end, but he had offensive abilities, and his skating was good. Now it's even better. And so, no, this guy was good. This guy was a known guy, not known to be like a star. He's definitely exceeding what most felt about him. I mean, I'll look and see what I even wrote about him while I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just looking at his stats right now. I mean, the one thing that he probably didn't benefit from, even though he put up ridiculous stats, were that they were in the queue. And we know the queue is always a wide open offensive league, but he had 129 and 128 points in his last 2 years with Moncton. Yeah. And then he went down to the AHL, had okay first year, better second year, got a chance with split time with the Coyotes and Tucson after starting well in the AHL that year. Got 13 goals in 47 games, then scored 22 last year. So and now is almost, like I said, almost at a point per game pace. He deserves to get paid. Now, again, if they don't want to pay him and they are saying, okay, we're going to use this guy to recoup all the draft picks that we lost because we were stupid and cheated.
Right.
Then okay, that's that. I don't think that's the right way to run an organization. But if you're going to try to recoup 1st and 2nd round picks for him, you probably can do that. I don't think it's the right move, but I think that there will be teams out there like Colorado who doesn't need a guy who's cheap, but contenders that are right up against it. This guy would be a great acquison.
Here's what I wrote about him.
Yeah.
He's at the top of my list as far as like some of the Arizona prospects. I wrote that he grew up in the U.S. and, was great in the Q. He's 5'8", so that was a reason why he was drafted where he was. Yeah, I talked about the 100-point seasons. He has hockey speed, which is true. Like, he's maybe not the fastest guy you watch normally, but there are times in the game where all of a sudden he will appear faster because, he's got some kind of play tied to it. He's got great stick and puck skills. And I wrote, can he get to the net in the pros? And I put a question mark. Well, the answer is yes.
Yeah,
if he wasn't going to, he wouldn't be the player he is right now, but he has figured it out. And
It reminds me of,
I wrote that in 20.
He reminds me a lot of, that's interesting. He reminds me a lot of Briere in a lot of ways. When I watch him play, I think he's got the same kind of like nose for the net, and he's got a nose for scoring goals at key times too. He really has. He has been a hugely important player for Arizona.
And he's not Gensel, and I'll tell you why he's not Gensel, because he's better on the power play than Gensel. Gensel is better streaking down the ice, making plays with Crosby or somebody else like that. He's a little different than that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't see him as Gensel either. I see him more as like is he a center
good. I like
center or a winger, or what is he? Technically a winger.
He's a winger. He's a right winger.
No, Garland's a winger, right?
Garland can play left and right wing.
Yes, he's technically a winger. Yeah, because
Gensel's more of a sniper. I think Garland is more of a not a two-way guy, but he can score, but he also can make plays. I think he's dual capable. I mean, now the question is Arizona going to sell? And we're 3 weeks away from the deadline, 3 weeks today. And Arizona, and this is something I think we should talk about. Yeah. Right now, Arizona's got 31 points. They're 6 points behind St. Louis and Minnesota for third and fourth place in the West. 3 weeks they have to determine. Bill Armstrong has to determine whether he's in or whether he's out.
Right.
I think if the gap gets any larger than 6 points, they're sellers. But what I want to see is, who do we think right now on March 22nd are sellers?
And that's a really hard call. It's
I think okay.
There are some obvious teams, of course, but
right. I mean, I think okay. The obvious teams right now go division by division. I think Detroit is obviously a seller.
Yeah.
I think Nashville is obviously a seller.
Yeah.
Even though Nashville is only 4 points out of a playoff spot, everybody seems to say they're selling.
It would think that, but Poyle has never been a seller. He's not really a seller. That's not. So it's tough to say. He's got to. I think for him, they have to fall further back for him to be a seller officially.
And the interesting thing that Elliot Friedman brought up this morning or at least I was listening to it this morning on his podcast with Jeff Merrick, was, are they actually going to sell Ekholm, or might they sell Ryan Ellis instead and sign Ekholm and trade Ellis? And they think that they could get more for Ellis, more because he's an offensive defenseman. He's he's a good skater, and he's under contract, and he's locked up for, I think, at least 3 or 4 more years.
Yeah, no, it is an interesting move. I mean, Ellis has a lot of value to him, but at the same time, we are seeing the offensive defenseman market coming down more, and the Ekholm type defenseman market being bigger right now. Like that's more, people want Ekholm type defenseman more than they want Ellis type defenseman, even though Ellis is one of the better at what he does.
Hey, but this is such a fickle thing. But yeah,
I mean, Ellis is under contract. It's 6 more years at $6.25 million. Now the thing is, $6.25 million is a pretty damn economical cap.
That's a good one, because he's one of your top 2 defensemen. So if you if he comes to your team, you can get your top 2 defensemen for that for around $6 million a piece or whatever. You're in good shape.
Yeah, now, I mean, just so you know, like the Ekholm kind of player isn't sustainable. I mean, as an example, a better offensive player that's that kind of player is Jake Sanderson. And look where he went in the draft. There's a few of these guys every year.
Yeah.
And a few of them turn into that weren't the offensive players you thought, but there's not enough to go around, not even close.
But I think what happens, Russ, is that, they are, because there's not to go around, it's a real weird supply demand thing going on, because what happens is that, teams are saying they need the Ekholm type player right now.
Right.
They don't need one that's a rookie. They need one. That's the kind of player you want. You go get when you're like ready to go for the run, So it's like, bring him in as a rookie, developing that kind of player. That's a much harder thing.
The shelf life of that type of defenseman is much shorter, because they're blocking shots. Yeah. They're getting into scrums in front of the net. There's a lot more wear and tear on those defensemen, and that's why all of a sudden they're great. Like Mark Edward Vlasic, he's great until he drops off the cliff, and then he's a $7 million albatross on your rear neck for the next 5 or 6 years.
For sure.
Okay, so Buffalo is definitely a seller. I think New Jersey is definitely a seller.
Yeah, they are.
Russ, would you say the Rangers are sellers?
They're not going to say they're sellers yet. They'll wait till the last minute.
Yeah.
Now, John Davidson won't let them say that they're sellers.
Now, I don't think this team is a seller, but I think it's getting to the point now, Ak, that they're not a buyer, and that's the Philadelphia Flyers, because the injury news about Couturier, we don't know what's going on. If he's out for 4 weeks, say goodbye to your season.
They're saying he might play tonight.
He might play tonight. I mean, it's so.
Here's what I would say about that. You know what this is like? They know the season's on the line, and we always hear if the season's on the line, these injured players will play, and that's why they won't get the surgery. And so that's probably what's going on here with Couturier, because he's that kind of guy. But he's not going to be as effective, that's for sure.
Yeah, he hasn't been as effective lately. You can see it in his game. I think it's going to take them falling like 10 points out to become sellers. I think that if they, it will. I mean, honestly, do, because
you're going to need a couple of 7-0, 6-1 losses beyond what you've seen.
Well, let me put it this way. Here's a really good way of putting this. If the Flyers don't haven't traded for a defenseman by 1 week from right now, then they are sellers.
I don't know.
Honestly, that's where I feel they are right now, because I think they are getting one this week. I think within the next couple days you will see them pull the trigger.
I don't know if they're sellers, but they probably won't be buyers, is what I'm saying.
Well, they're buyers right now. The question so I'm saying as of now, they're buyers. So, and they're not looking at trade deadline really. They're really not looking at the trade deadline. They're really looking at right now. They can't have any. They're just giving up way too many goals. They cannot continue.
It's a two-pronged problem now. They also have a goaltending problem.
They have a goaltending issue right now, and
they can't say for sure that just by fixing the defense it's going to cure it. They're going to hope for that, and if they do lay out major assets for that, and goaltending's still a problem, their season's done.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, with the goaltending issues, what you have to do. Goaltending issues are often solved psychologically, and I think that's what they do. If they get a Ekholm to come in here into Philly, and that does boost Carter Hart's confidence. In a weird way that you can see that
it's
playing.
Not going to make him technically play better, and he is falling off technically, and that's the other.
He's falling off for sure. But technically he's up. But he also is a smart enough guy, I think, to be able to figure that out. You would think, but I think it's going to take some confidence, and it's going to take some him seeing that the Flyers are willing to give him some help.
Okay. Ottawa are definitely sellers.
Yeah.
I don't know. Vancouver's been on this ridiculous hot streak right now, and Demko is playing he's not playing out of his mind right now at like .960 save percentage.
Yeah.
And they're only 2 points behind Montreal for fourth place in the North, but they've played 4 more games than almost everyone.
Yeah, they won't care until that number is the same.
Right.
They won't care, and they might even be buyers up to that point.
And their ownership will be so clueless that they won't allow Benning to do what he needs to do. In the West, Anaheim is a seller.
Yeah.
San Jose, Russ, we talked to Sheng Peng on.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like they're willing to admit that they're sellers yet.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, okay, you're not willing to admit that you're sellers, but then maybe a week before the deadline, you are going to be. You admit to yourself that you're going to be sellers. Who the hell?
They're 11 and 14 and 3. All of a sudden, if they become 14 and 3, then they're thinking they have a chance. And that's a bad place to be in the NHL, actually.
But who the hell are you selling though? Because nobody in their right mind is taking Carlson. Brent Burns.
Somebody would take Devin Dubnyk though, under the right circumstances.
Dubnyk and maybe I've heard Marcus Sorensen's
Sorensen would definitely be taken under the right circumstances. He's a good player.
But any of those long-term deals, I mean, they're stuck with them.
Yeah, the long-term deals, they're not going to move any of them.
And Arizona is the other one that, like I said, we're looking at and saying, okay, if the next week or so goes badly for them, then they might be sellers. And if they stick around, I mean, there's not a lot of money to be made for these teams if they're making the playoffs in terms of gate. So I don't know whether that's enough to convince the ownership in Arizona to say, let's stay the course. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Gate's going to improve, though, because the Rangers just put out a thing April 1st. There's some loosening of restrictions for fans to get in there. So even So I think we're going to see before the end of the season increased gate in all markets. And
the interesting thing, Russ, is that there was some talk on the weekend about Montreal letting in fans. Now, I think that'll get quickly squelched by the Canadian government because they're a wet blanket on any hope, basically.
Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, and I understand. Like right now, like the vaccine is not getting out in the amounts that it's getting out in the U.S. and Canada, and I feel for the people up there, and I wish that their government would be more efficient and get the vaccine to people so that we could get past this. But right now, they're not going to open up their borders until they get vaccinated. So I mean, it's going to lead, it's going to lead to the Raptors playing the rest of the season in Tampa. It's going to lead to the Blue Jays playing in Florida and in Buffalo for most of this season, and the Leafs probably playing playoff games in Buffalo if they get to the conference final. So I mean,
Eck, I did want to bring this up, and then we can get back to the Sellers. But something I heard this morning on the radio, the NFL is doing an outdoor draft. They're doing it in Cleveland in April, and there's no guarantee April will be beautiful weather in Cleveland. There's certainly no reason the NHL can't do an outdoor draft if they want to, or mostly outdoor draft.
I agree. I don't know why they wouldn't.
They can keep it warm by setting the river on fire in Cleveland.
Well, that's easy. There's so much junk. I always called it Lake Dirty, and I went there and I just saw stuff floating from the minute I went there. Like I didn't have to make it up; it was there.
It's medical waste. I've seen Lake Erie up close. It's right. It's close.
No, but the idea is, even if they decided just for the first day to do it outside at night because of the heat, it would make sense.
It would totally make sense. It would. I mean, there's no reason not to. I mean, it really isn't. The exception of the fact that these old GMs don't like to be outside in hot weather. But besides that,
the interesting.
Hold on, they moved to Florida.
You know how this works. You know how this works. You have grandparents. It's like you have
need an umbrella.
Yeah, but they go to Florida, but then they stay in the air conditioning. It's like
the draft is at night. If they hold the draft in Vegas. And the draft is at night, it's not ridiculously hot at night.
Here's what I would do.
What's the worst thing that can happen? They have a big fan there. It blows all their notes all over the place.
I would have it set up in a big, area, like whatever big park area, whatever that I could have a lot of people in, but, distance them if I need to. I might not need to at that point. I'm going to have the NHL umbrellas. I'm going to have the GMs in sunglasses and cabana shirts. And I don't see a problem here. And then maybe a guy walking around, selling the occasional ice pop.
I was going to say, walking around with a bucket of ice and Corona.
Yeah, what else do you need?
And some limes.
There you go. I mean, there you have it, right?
I'll be out there in shorts. I'll be out there live too.
When we were in Dallas at the press party, Russ, there were a lot of people wearing cabana shirts and drinking Coronas.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, the Canadians know how to party when it's warm out, so that's for sure. So today on the blog, Dmitry Kulikov's picture I put up there as well, and that is this is a name that came up a lot. Like I've been looking into Sammy Kapanen, and I was flat out told that there's more interest in Dmitry Kulikov.
Sammy Vatanen. Oh,
Sammy Vatanen. I always call him Kapanen. So I always go Sammy Vatanen. Man, oh man, Sammy. I always say.
Is he related to Gary Galley?
Oh, just stop it.
Him and Kulikov are on the same team too, so that's fair.
Kulikov is the guy we're talking about here.
Yes,
Dmitry.
No, but this is okay. This is what makes sense. Okay, look at Kulikov's stats. He's got 2 assists in 28 games, so he's not going to exactly win the Norris Trophy, but he's experienced. He's played over a decade in the NHL.
Yeah.
He's a fairly decent defensive defenseman now. Later in his career, he wasn't so early in his career, but he's making $1.1 million, and that's the most attractive factor here. Is that he's cheap, he's experienced, he's not over the hill. You can probably get him for a 3rd round pick, and he's the perfect 7th defenseman. Break the glass if you need him. But that's I think contending team. The price is not going to go more than that, a 3rd round pick. But that's a good ad for a team that needs an extra defenseman.
I agree, and I think we're going to see more guys like that come into play. I think that's what's happening right now is we're starting to see some guys that you weren't necessarily expecting. Because I really do think that a lot of the top guys are just too expensive right now. And whether or not that price comes down, or whether or not these teams are like, well, we'll put a price out there and see if this is how much we're willing to. If not, we'll just go with it. We don't know. We don't know if the price is going to come down on these guys yet.
To me, Kulikov is like Thomas Caberlet at the end. Like, he'll be on a roster. You don't know what you could really expect. It's true. He's not much better than that, Mike.
No, I mean, I think Caberlet was better, at least at
will you stop protecting
at the end of his career, he was a good
so bad at the end. Stop.
At the end of his career, he was still a good power play point guy.
He was not.
In Boston in 2011, he was still power play.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so, yeah. Believe it.
Count up how many playoff goals he had.
Believe what you believe, and I'll believe the truth.
Go see how many playoff goals he had if you're so high on him.
Yeah, a lot of assists. I know I had him in my fantasy hockey pool. But this is the thing, with Vatanen. Yeah. New Jersey would have to probably retain 50%. He's a $2 million defenseman, and they'd probably have to retain 50% to get the same value that they'd get for Kulikov, who's making $1.1 million. I think Vatanen's a much better defenseman. He can play both sides, but he's a top 6 guy, and I think Kulikov is a guy who's a 7th defenseman.
Yeah,
I agree with that. Totally.
Except on the Devils, but otherwise, yes.
Right, and the problem here is a lot of these guys who we've heard about, not only Ekholm, he's got a year left, but Josh Manson, he's got a year left. Brandon Montour, he's making $3.8 million. Teams can't fit these guys.
Yeah, speaking of which, I love Larry Brooks, but I would tell him face-to-face, bro to bro, there is zero chance that PK Subban becomes a Boston Bruin, no matter how much money is floated either way.
I don't know. Okay. Russ has watched PK Subban. Ek, you've watched him.
Yeah.
I've watched him. He's washed up. He's not he's not anywhere close to the defenseman that he was when he was in Montreal or Nashville. Can he still play in the NHL? Sure, but he's making $9 million. Even at 50%, even at $4.5 million, he's overpaid. If he's making $700,000 on a 1-year contract and he's on your bottom pairing, okay, that's fine. But he's making $9 million.
That's the question that we have to ask ourselves: is it possible that he has another level and he's just not showing it, right? Like that we're seeing that, and because he has been known to do that throughout his career. Like he has, throughout his whole career in Montreal and in Nashville, there were weeks and months where he kind of coasted, but then managed to like suddenly find this other level to pick it up and play incredibly well. Yeah, so.
Didn't we hear like this? He really devoted himself to get back into shape and all that stuff at the beginning of the year. That he worked out too much, or he bulked up too much, or all this stuff. And we see this year, and he's the same defenseman, and he's in fact probably worse.
Yeah, I guess the counter, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all, but the counter argument could be that he's a big game defenseman, and there's no big games going on in New Jersey. So you put him in a situation where the playoffs, he's on a team that's in the playoffs. Maybe he comes up huge. I don't know. I think there's nothing that we're seeing from his play that makes us confident in that. Like I agree with you on that. Like there's no, he looks like he's at the end when you watch him play.
He'll still play, but he'll go cheaper contracts. He'll go for a few more years for sure.
Yeah,
nobody's doing anything with him right now.
I was sort of half joking, but seriously, after next year, after his last year of the contract at $9 million, he's probably not getting bought out. He's probably not going to Seattle because they're not going to take that kind of money. He's probably going to stay right where he is, unless New Jersey again retains 50% and trades him. When he's a free agent, he's probably going to end up going to Toronto on a 1-year, $700,000 contract because he's from there, and because maybe they'll sign him because he's he could play on the bottom pairing. But honestly, other than that, I don't see anybody ever spending more money on PK Subban again.
I do want to mention to Elizabeth, if I had 2 pencils right now, I would put my head down and come up with 2 pencils up my nose like John Belushi did, and just to say that's the chances of Drew Doughty going to Philly, 0.0, the same as Mr. Blutarski's point average. Same chance. Yeah. As well as he's playing, Philly doesn't even have enough to trade for him.
Yeah, here's another defenseman that's making too much at the deadline is Erica Branson. He's a $4 million defenseman. If he was a $2 million defenseman, he would move. I don't know if he's going to move as a $4 million defenseman. Again, either Ottawa will have to take money back in a deal, or which they probably would, or they have to retain 50%. So That is the stuff that is the things, the hoops that a lot of these teams are going to have to jump through over the next 3 weeks.
Heck, I did want to mention Anatoly Golishev, because I did get word, and I put it up on Sportsology, that he is coming. The contract's canceled, and so I did put up a on Twitter, my last notes on him, and he's a really good player. I know everybody's used to saying, well, he's coming from Russia, what the hell's going to happen? And
right.
Don't compare him to other Russian players like Gusev or whatever. He's a little different, and I'll tell you why. And you can look at his points there, and that's fine, but obviously he's not on a great team where he'd still be playing.
Right, sure.
He's got a great shot from the slot. Will he be able to get that off in the NHL? Yes, but yeah, he'll need a little room. He can definitely get the high corner with it. He's got speed. He competes down low, but he's also decently defensive. And so I think defensively, and so I think what could happen here is just the Islanders having him on a line with maybe someone like Bailey and a couple of vets to occasionally feed him and see what's there.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, it will solve the problem of them sort of being stagnant maybe with their bottom six, and might open things up until they get somebody. But he'd be a good guy to throw in there and let him really play 12, 13 minutes until Barry Trotz find a place for this guy. And I think it could help him just until they get somebody else and further.
Russ,
I fully believe he'll play. I fully believe he'll play because this is the kind of guy that Lou loves.
Russ, do you remember? I'm pretty sure it was Golishev that was the player that Edmonton wanted to draft, and they found out that he was not eligible, or there was something in the draft that they couldn't take him, and then
maybe it was because he said he was 5'8" and he isn't. I don't know.
No, all I know is
I don't remember what the situation was.
I might be wrong. I know it was a Russian player, and there was a reason that he was supposed to that Edmonton wanted to draft, Edmonton wanted to sign him as a free agent, and he was still draft eligible. That's what it was. I'm pretty sure that was the case. Now, okay, just because people were asking in the chat, I'll just address the Leaf news, which isn't a lot of news, but whatever. Travis Boyd got claimed by the Vancouver Canucks. The Vancouver Canucks should be called.
We all saw it coming.
Yeah, the Western Maple Leafs, because they're collecting every discard from the Leaf roster. Now, not to say that Jimmy Vesey isn't a good player, because I think he is. I was all in favor of that signing, and the Leafs tried to get him down to the taxi squad and couldn't do it. And in this instance, Travis Boyd was making $700,000 and had 8 points in 20 games and played well in the fourth line. And they thought they could sneak him down to the taxi squad as well, but they couldn't, and Vancouver claimed him. The whole reason for this is the Leafs are right up against the cap. And right now, Kyle Dubas is trying to create cap space in advance of the deadline. And they're at 20 players on the roster. They're at 12 forwards and 6 defensemen. So they're at the bare minimum. And they're probably, the talk is right now is that Freddie Anderson may go on injured reserve for this lower body injury that he's been apparently dealing with for a while. Now, that to me, that's convenient timing, because I think Jack Campbell is going to be given a chance to take a run here. You look at the Leafs schedule, they're off for 3 more days. They start playing every other day on Thursday against Ottawa. There's time in between each starts. If they're 100% sure that Campbell is completely healthy, and he's right now got like a .960 save percentage and his 2 consecutive shutouts, you go with the hot guy. You don't play him until he breaks, but you may have to give Hutchinson a start here or there. But right now with Anderson, the way he's been playing lately, he clearly is being dogged by this injury, whatever.
I was just cleaning my shoulder.
Oh, okay. He's clearly being, hampered by this injury. So play the guy.
This is the reason Freddie's been bad this year, is all the injury. Nothing else.
Mean, do I believe that? No, but I mean, that's what they're saying. So I have to buy into what they're saying.
Okay.
But clearly since he came back from the injury on March the 3rd, Russ, his save percentage is in the mid 800s. His goals against is in the mid 3s, and he's 2-5 or 2-6.
It's a factor for sure.
It's definitely a factor. So I mean, they but I don't think, and I'll just mention this because I read it and I respect David Pagnotta, but the fourth period was reporting that the Leafs might be interested in Jonathan Quick. First of all, Jonathan, anybody who's watched the Kings, Cal Peterson is their number one goalie. He really is. Jonathan Quick may be starting as many games or maybe more games, but Cal Peterson's the better of the two goaltenders. Jonathan Quick's got 2 more years left at $5.8 million, and he's not the goaltender that won the Cup in 2014 or 2012. So you're talking about a goalie in his mid-30s who's had chronic groin problems, who's not the same goalie that he was, and you're going to trade for him. I wouldn't trade for him if they retain 50%.
Yeah.
So clearly, that they're going to protect Peterson in the expansion draft, but probably not Quick. Even though Quick does not have a no move, he has no trade protection, so they can trade him. But I don't know if anybody's interested in him at 5.8 or even
nobody is
in the 3s.
No, I don't. No, nobody is. I would say this, in the chat room saying that we know it'll probably be Kenny Agostino, but if the Leafs were looking for something a little longer term, I would use Joey Anderson over him. I like Agostino as a player. I've watched him since college, since Yale, but he's not much of a finisher. I know he's getting points in the A, but when he comes up, he generally isn't. He is fast and he can be physical. So if they need that, he's the better guy. But if they're looking for a little bit more than that offensively, I would bring up Joey Anderson because he is tricky around the net and he also is greasy, and he could be a long-term solution for the Leafs. I really like Joey Anderson. And
I think they like him, and they gave him a game earlier on in the season when they were sort of playing around with their fourth line, and he's got 5 goals in 16 games with the Marlies. So I think he's one of a number. The only thing with Agostino, he's more experienced. He's a veteran.
Yes.
But I do think now Nick Robertson has an oblique injury right now, so he would
be the guy otherwise.
Yeah, right, exactly. But there are not many other options. It's like I'm looking at the Marlies roster. Adam Brooks is a good young player. Agostino has been up for a while, up and down. It's Anderson and Alexander Barabanov would come back. He's actually scored really well in the AHL for 2 games. He had 5 points, so he might be the guy that they give the first chance to. If so,
it would be nice if they did that, but I don't know if they will because they didn't do it before. And Galchenyuk is now like a regular for now.
Well, I watched the 2 games Galchenyuk has played, and he's played really well. If he didn't play really well, I would say give up on him because he is playing with Tavares and Nylander. He is an offensive player. If you can't take advantage of the fact that you're playing with one of the best centers in the league and a guy who, when he turns it on, is one of the best wingers in the league, then you should give up. But do I think that Galchenyuk had 8 points in 6 games with the Marlies. He had an assist on Saturday. He's hustled. He hasn't been a defensive liability. So, I think they're going to keep giving him a chance until they make this trade for this top 6, top 9 winger. And maybe the fact that maybe they get somebody who's a little lower down in the lineup and they're comfortable with Galchenyuk.
There is a worry, though. I spoke to you about it offline. To me, the worry is that with the Leafs, the way their cap is, and having to do all of these cap gymnastics, they are whittling away at their depth.
Yeah, ideally, I don't think they wanted to lose VC, and I don't think they wanted to lose Boyd. They like the way Boyd played, and I think VC. I think they could trust in a bottom 6 role, in a 3rd line, 4th line role. He wasn't going to make any major mistakes. He just doesn't seem to be capable of carrying an offensive burden. Except for that burst that he had where he scored 3 goals in 3 games. He hadn't really shown much offensively, a lot of finish. Galchenyuk can do that, but he's a double-edged sword. He's a guy that, throughout his career has been mostly a defensive liability. Now, he's not playing center. He's playing the wing, and I think they've stressed to the guy, if you become a liability, you're not playing anymore. So
yeah, look, I like Galchenyuk. I think he can do something for him. Cam is asking, is it a foregone conclusion that Nashville is going to trade Ekholm? My answer is yes, because they're not going to sign him. And the longer you wait, the less another team has to use him. Somebody who's a playoff team would get 2 cracks at a playoffs with him, and you can get a lot more for that. If they squander that, the return for him, even at the draft, is not nearly as good. So he's definitely a goner. It's just a matter of who gives the highest offer because Nashville's asking for a lot.
Okay, Esmir, I'll ask you this question. You can answer in the chat. Why would Anaheim trade John Gibson?
They never would.
Why? I'd say he's one of the 5 best goaltenders in the league right now. Okay.
Yeah, they're not trading.
He's probably going to be the backup for Team USA at the Olympics if they go to the Olympics. Why would they trade him? He's under contract for, I think, I'm looking it up right now. I think it's 3 more years at least, maybe longer. Oh, excuse me. 6 more years at $6.4 million. He's 27 years old. He's in his prime. I get the point that Anaheim blows right now. They're not a good team. But that doesn't mean, unless Gibson's asking out, I don't think he is.
No, I don't think he is.
So why? Why would they trade him?
Plus, now they have Zegras and Drysdale starting to play with them. He's not going to ask out.
Yeah.
I have to go, guys. Unfortunately, I'm telling you what I'm working on, though. It does sound like the Flyers are going to be doing something here.
Okay.
I don't know if it happens today or tomorrow, but I do think what I was saying before. Like I said, if they haven't picked up their defenseman by this time next week, I think they would be sellers. But I think they're buyers until then. I think they realize though that they've got tonight, tomorrow, and Thursday, like 3 big games in 4 nights here that they have to make. That they have to win. They have to win these games, so they have to do something quickly. I don't, it would be hard to say if something would happen by tonight, obviously, because it's 2:00 now. But if they would be able to get a player in by tonight, so we'll see. But
we'll finish off with some questions in the chat, Russ.
Thanks. I'm sorry, guys. I'm really sorry. I got to run.
No problem.
Keep checking the blog. I'll be back.
All right. Thanks, Zach. I do want to mention, we're not going to get political here, but we're talking about the Olympics, and Mike Pompeo is the most recent guy to come out. And look, I wasn't a Trump guy. You know that. But he was a guy, what was he, Secretary of State?
Yep.
And so that is a position where you do know what's going on around the world. You can't help it. You're getting reports and briefings and everything. And he doesn't think that Beijing should host the Olympics, which means he doesn't think the U.S. should show.
Right.
It would be nice if the IOC changed the host, but they won't do that because they've already been paid, like you said.
Right.
And so it really does seem like I'm going 65% it's going to be boycotted.
Yeah, right now I think it's a 50-50 proposition. The funny thing is that most, and I'm not going to turn this into meet the press.
No,
I would say right now you've got nobody in the administration, the current administration, who's in favor of boycotting it because they're trying to cozy up to China, and almost everybody on the Republican side who's starting to get the drumbeat to the boycott. I think the only 2 people that are against boycotting are Mitt Romney, who was a former head of the IOC when the Salt Lake City Olympics happened, right, and Ted Cruz, who believes that it's wrong to punish the athletes. So, the Republicans are not in power. So unless something really drastic happens over the next few months, I don't think they're going to boycott. But
here's a wild card in this that I just read online. So China is vaccinating their people. The problem is their vaccines are not universally accepted.
Right. Yeah. No.
So will we want to even expose our athletes to going there because of that?
Right, and we don't know what the restrictions are going to be in Beijing as opposed to what's going on in Tokyo right now, where no people from outside of Japan other than reporters are going to be allowed in the country.
Beijing is hoping for open travel. They've said it.
Right.
The problem is
the same kind of open travel that happened in Wuhan that spread all the friggin' virus all over the world. That's brilliant.
But they want open travel, but they're having trouble with vaccinated passports, and they're having trouble with people, basically endorsing their vaccine. So that's another issue. Like, yes, you want the players to be able to go over there, but you can't put them at risk either, health-wise. Right.
Now, Esmir says Devils fans aren't too impressed with Andreas Janssen. Okay, that was a 1-for-1 trade, Andreas Janssen for Joey Anderson. It was mostly a salary dump. Everybody knows that. Janssen scored 20 goals 2 years ago, scored 8 goals in 43 games last year. This year in 29 games has 3 goals and 4 assists. I don't know what line he's playing on with the Devils, but I'm assuming it's probably like a second or third line. And if he's not playing with Jack Hughes, who the hell's getting him the puck? He was playing with Austin Matthews in Toronto.
Yeah, I think it's third line, but I don't know for sure because I haven't watched them in about a week.
Right. So, I mean, now, if you look at the other trade that the Leafs made with Pittsburgh, Kasperi Kapanen is doing pretty decently in Pittsburgh right now. He's got 21 points in 29 games, 7 goals, 14 assists. And the Leaf side of that deal was mostly futures, first round pick, and assorted prospects like Hallander. So, I mean, that deal was made for the immediate return for Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's using Kapanen now in a top 6 role.
And the Leafs probably like Hallander the same way I like him.
Right. So, but I believe Hallander is going to come over to North America after the SHL season is over with. And he had a good year in Luleå this year, Russ.
He's good, man. I'm telling you, this guy can play. I wrote about him in his draft year. This guy can play, and he can play center or wing.
Yeah.
So I still think the Leafs are on the smart end of this one. Look, New Jersey's a -19 in differential. If you look at their scoring, and look, Hughes has 16 points in 29 games, you'd probably say, oh, that's not that good. But it's second in scoring on this team. Zach is first with 18, and he's had a nice season. I like the way he's bounced back, but they have nothing going for them offensively. Nothing.
Yeah. Cameron is saying that the Sharks are going to trade Sorensen. I saw that Elliot Friedman reported that on Saturday.
Sure.
Again, this is a guy that maybe you get a second-round pick.
It's not going to be a massive return.
Yeah. Michael Cohen will get banned for the stuff that he's saying in the chat. Just forewarning you there. Russ, Tolvanen starting to show some potential.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's never going to lose the shot, and he was always a good skater. The problem was he's not good in his own end, and he needed to get physically stronger. So, if it's Leonard, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, I hope that that's the case because I like him as a guy. I always thought he had an engaging personality. He's got a fantastic shot. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, if this is the case, this is good that Nashville has hung with him.
Well, I mean, he's got 7 goals in 23 games, and he should, be given an opportunity to play more in Nashville because really they're not going anywhere with the guys that they've been playing a lot right now. So
find out what he is.
Give your kids a chance.
Yep.
Davy Jones is saying, what is the Sabres' next move? Okay, short of jumping into Lake Erie, I would say to start to move the veteran guys out now, get ahead of the curve.
That would be smart.
But the thing is, okay, you have no experience in management here, and I don't know who is, if Kevin Adams, if this is a one-man show, then I don't know whether and I'm not trying to insult him, but I'm saying basically it's like you need experience to make the right moves, and when you're inexperienced, you don't know what the right move is. And I think the right move is to get ahead of the curve and start to move out the players that you can move out and get as much as you can for them. But again, they don't have a scouting staff, so trading for draft picks, unless they're 2022 draft picks, is fraught with peril. So I mean, that's why, like, if they trade Taylor Hall and it's to the Islanders and it's a bunch of USA Hockey guys, they know those guys. That might be beneficial to them. But
I mean, this isn't a Hitchcock movie being fraught with peril, Mike. Like, come on.
No, hey, it just shows I have a good education. What can I do?
I will say this about the Sabres. Their offense is pathetic. It's truly, as bad as the Devils' offense is, it makes the Sabres look okay. Like, that's how bad their offense is. It's brutal.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, like I said, there are the 3 players that definitely should be traded. And not because they done anything wrong, but just because they're unrestricted free agents and they're probably not going to be back. Hall, Stahl, and Montour. Now any other deal.
And we do have to mention this, right?
Yeah.
This isn't indicative of the player, but this is because Kevin Allen asked me about this today. What's going on with the player development there? And I said it stunk for years, and they tried to address it this year, and it really hasn't helped. If you have the same rookies or young guys failing, then you know it's player development. And so far they are. And Darlene to the point where he's a minus 28. I get a lot of that is the team.
Yeah.
I see flashes of what I should see when I watch him play, but he doesn't carry it through a whole game anymore. And he's probably lost as far as what the message is. And he's still a young guy. So these things are alarming when you really don't have any of your young players, Middlestat, Darlene, Asplund,
Cousins.
Yeah, when you don't see them developing, that spells trouble for the future. I mean, again, we talked about it. Dylan Cousins has 5 points in his 20 games. So if he ends up with 13 points this year, was that worth it to keep him at the NHL level? We're going to say it's a coin flip, man. That's not necessarily worth it.
The organization can say, well, what option did we have since the WHL wasn't playing? But
you could send him back now, though.
You could have played it. You could have played him in Rochester. You could have done.
But they could send him back now if they want tomorrow.
Right, but basically, and Cameron saying he should be playing in Lethbridge. But they saw how well he played at the World Junior and got all excited, just like they got all excited about Casey Middlestat playing great at the World Junior in Buffalo. And he played. I think he had like 6 points in 7 games, and they were like, okay, we can trade Ryan O'Reilly now because we've got our second line center. It's Casey Middlestat. And then after they trade O'Reilly and get almost nothing for him, Casey Middlestat plays like he's 20 years old, which he was. So, I mean, the thought process of the Sabres organization is just not there. And it's not just Darlene, guys like Henry Jokiharju, who they traded Alex Nylander for, and they won that deal. Everybody thought they won that deal because Jokiharju played really well last year. And then this year, he's nowhere to be seen.
No, he's really been visible.
Yeah, so, I mean, and the funny thing,
he's never strong in his own end, like never.
No, and the funny thing is, Russ, is they hired Dan Girardi purportedly to work with Darlene. It was basically, that's your assignment, work with Rasmus Dahlin. So that means the ball was so dropped by Kruger and Steve Smith that they now have to. He's a reclamation project.
Crazy.
Okay. Tom is asking, in your opinion, can a team like Florida make a good run when we get to a bubble semifinal? Well, we don't know if it's going to be a bubble semifinal.
We don't know that.
And the only bubble will be the North Division playing someplace not North.
Right. I mean, if Florida makes it the whole way or they keep playing, there's no problem there. They don't care about anything.
Yeah, they'll just have 2,000 fans, and then they'll consider
They're
that.
They're going to have 2 full nights packed at the where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers play for WrestleMania. They don't care.
Right. So
they just don't.
Yeah. No. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a bubble unless there's a third wave. And I just think that they can make a good run. I don't think they're a complete team. I think there's some holes still there. I'm still not trusting of goalie Bob, but he's played better. But he's played better of late. They may need to make an addition or two before the deadline, but you can't take anything away from them. They played well this year, a lot better than a lot of people expected. So,
I will say this: I forget who it was. I think it was Morello asked about the 8 minutes that Lafreniere played. That was when David Quinn was coach. He's not coach at the moment, and so that hasn't happened. And I say it jokingly, but right now that really is the case. Lafreniere's hitting a bump again. There's no question. He's only had 1 point in his last 5 games. But he has been playing 14 minutes, 13 minutes, 14 minutes. So, that was – no, actually, that was last game. Sorry, I looked at it backwards. So, I don't have the answer for that one, but he was playing a lot of minutes up to that point. Arthur's the bump, that's for sure.
Yeah. Arthur is asking any players you particularly like from the 2021 draft class, and then he's asked about the specific name, Jesper Wallstedt.
Well, he's the first goalie taken, and so I have him right now – ranked 10th. That's where I got Wallstedt. So I think that's close to where he's going to go. As far as a U.S. dark horse, yeah, I'm going to go with Chaz Lucius, who plays for the NTDP. Like his speed, he gets around the defense. He's got great hands around the net. So let's go with Chaz Lucius.
Okay,
Elliot first rounder though.
Right. Elliot Friedman just reported that Jordan Harris, who is a Montreal Canadiens prospect, played at Northeastern last year, 19 points in 19 games, was a third-round pick in the 2018 draft. He is going back to Northeastern for his senior season. Now, that doesn't mean that he's not going to sign with the Canadiens.
But it's risky, though.
But the odds of a player going back for a senior year and then availing himself of the opportunity to test free agency in the middle of August, it increases exponentially. He's from Haverhill, Mass. So I don't know. I mean,
don't say the Bruins because, again, I don't want to get into this. Every guy who's ever been born in Mass is going to play for the Bruins because a small percentage do. But the other thing is Montreal's loaded right now at the NHL level. So the chances of him going free agency are very good.
Right. And if you look at their defense, I mean, I'm just looking at their, prospects. Caden Gooley, first-round pick. Josh Brook. Let's see. Otto Leskinen. I don't know much about him. He's on an ELC. But they've got a few defensemen on top of the veterans that they have right now, and all of them on long-term deals. So maybe and Romanov and Mete. So, yeah, maybe he doesn't see a clear path to the NHL. And he also don't know whether Montreal was willing to burn the first year of the ELC. Now, of course, Julian, this is the guy that everybody should be focusing on when it comes to Montreal, and that's Caulfield.
Yes.
And
he's signing the minute Wisconsin's out.
And they're giving him every bonus that's there.
And they're getting him in the lineup. He's not going to go to Laval. He's going to go right into the NHL lineup. Maybe they won't put him on the top line. They'll probably put him on the second or third. Everybody in Philly will be taking note. He just will.
I know. And if for every goal that he scores, it's a stab in the heart of every Flyers fan. And that's not.
I mean, I'm not going to be that dramatic, but it's not that far off. I don't know what Nat means. Do I like the Whitefish? Do I like Chris Squire and Alan White when they soloed together? Do I like Whitefish in general? Sure. On a bagel, on rye bread, who doesn't? I don't know what that means.
Is that a substitute for salmon? Because I've never eaten whitefish.
You've never eaten whitefish?
I've had whitefish
whitefish salad.
In a fillet. No, I've had a fillet or something like that.
Oh, no, have whitefish salad one day. It's really good.
Okay.
If you go back to that deli in Toronto, order whitefish salad.
Okay.
It's really good.
This is across the sporting spectrum. Elizabeth asks, Yankees, Sixers, Leafs, Bucks. I'm assuming Bucks you mean Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Best chance of a championship. Okay, I'll go in order for this year. Yankees, Bucks, Leafs, Sixers.
This is a good one. I am going to go. This is like an F, marry, kill, just so she knows this. For me, I'm going to go Bucks 1. I am going to go Sixers 2. I'm going to go Yankees 3 and Leafs 4.
Well, I mean, Embiid is out.
Yeah, but he's not out for the season.
No, but,
He's always out, Mike. I mean, but, again, so is Kevin Durant. And if he doesn't get back, they do have a chance of at least getting there and losing.
Right. And now LeBron is hurt and he's got a high ankle sprain.
Right. So I think this is a year where the Sixers could get there. I'm not fully sold on the Yankees pitching staff, sorry to say, for Mike. I think he might agree with that.
Yeah, but if they can stay in first until July when Severino comes back, then I think, it all depends on how good Kluber and Payon are good in the middle of the rotation. But
I'll answer some of the NCAA tournament stuff because I haven't given it full thought because this is how I cover NCAA hockey. I look at their best prospects. I have a list of all 31 teams, soon to be 32, for the last 10 years of prospects that play around the league, and I write for Elite Prospects, and I give them reports. And so I keep up with all these guys. I am not keenly aware of how great all teams are. I do watch a lot of games, but I'm not even watching them all for the score as much as I'm rewinding it and watching it for the players. When I cover at Princeton, then certainly I have a better idea, but I haven't been in Princeton in a year, right? So end of the day, I think Wisconsin can go pretty far. I think they might get to the Frozen Four. I am going to cover the Frozen Four in Pittsburgh, so I'll be there. But at the end of the day, I like Minnesota. There's a lot to like there. I did have to ask Adam Woden how good he thinks their goaltender is because I wasn't fully familiar with him other than seeing him in a few games. He thinks he's one of the best. So based on that, I really like Blake McLaughlin a lot. I just wrote about him. He plays for Anaheim. I really thought they got a steal on the draft, but he was very skinny and didn't play well on his own end. And so I think people questioned whether he could score goals the way he scores them. Scored them in junior hockey, in junior A, in the NHL. And so far, he has really come alive the last 2 years. I like Scott Reedy. Scott Reedy, Mike and I talked about on Off the Post last night. I like him. I like Brock Faber. I like Jackson Lacombe. I've written about Lacombe a lot, and he was on the U.S. team, and so was Faber when they won gold medal. There's a lot to like there with that Minnesota team. You know, Sampo Ranta, if he's scoring overtime goals, that's a good sign. I don't know what he'll do at the NHL level, but he is big enough to get to the net at the NCAA level, and he has a good shot. So they have a mix. They've got a blend of seniors and, you know, first and second year draft guys that are really good. And that could be a very dangerous mix. Michigan, like, they have the top three guys. And, you know, Owen Power, I told you, I think he's going number one in the draft. I think Ken Johnson's a top 10. And I think Berniers is a top 5.
Yeah.
And so, but that doesn't win you a Frozen Four, because once you go up against a team that's got a load of seniors, that could be problematic. And so, even though they got the number 2 seed, I think they're going to get knocked off by a senior-laden team.
See,
that's it for now.
After all that, Russ, I think they were asking about your basketball picks.
If you're asking me for basketball,
no,
we're really hurting. I know Boeheim's son. I believe that's his son, anyhow, in Syracuse.
Oh, yeah, it's his son. Please, it's like, first of all, he looks not. He must look like his mom, because he looks nothing like his dad.
Right.
And second of all,
but he's good.
He looks like one of these guys who's going to make the NBA as like a JJ Redick type of guy, because he's hitting from like almost half court a couple times. It's ridiculous.
Here's what I'll tell you about March Madness. So I put up an article, and it's on Sportsology, about the best food cities. And I asked what cities were there. I asked about certain cities based on how good I thought they might be in the tournament. And trust me, my knowledge of NCAA basketball is not great.
Yeah.
But here's what I'm trying to find the article here. Okay, here we go. So here are the cities that I asked about. And so far, I think I'm doing pretty well. And Jill Gonzalez is the analyst from a place called Wallet Hub that answered the questions. So, well, first, for the food cities, just food itself, it was Philly 1 for her, upstate New York 2, North Carolina 3. The interesting thing about the upstate, and we did it with schools that were, you know, playing in the tournament, she talked about the Speedies, those subs that they have, and I had one in Binghamton. I'm not sure if you've ever had one, Mike.
What are they called again?
Speedies.
No.
Yeah, they were originated out of Binghamton, and I guess they've made their way up to like Syracuse. But I asked about Ohio. Now, she's from Ohio State, so she mainly talked about Ohio State, but we saw that their other team advanced. So me asking about Ohio was pretty good. I asked about Syracuse, and obviously Syracuse is pretty good. I asked about Utah, meaning Salt Lake City. That's pretty good. And I asked about Michigan, and, you know, she talked about East Lansing and Ann Arbor. Though I haven't gotten an update on how they're doing, because I don't keep track of the tournament. Do you know if they won or not, Mike?
Who?
Michigan or Michigan State?
Michigan is still in it. Michigan State lost, I think, to UCLA in the first 4.
So based on those cities that I asked about, and that was not about food, you know, a lot of them are still doing pretty good. And I think I asked about Oregon too. Hold on, I think I did. I asked about Oregon as well, and I think Oregon is still in it as well.
I don't know if Oregon is known for any particular food, except for
I didn't ask them for the food part. This was just on a fan part. I probably wasn't very clear on that. The other ones, when I was asking, was about, they have this graphic that they talk about their fans, how good their fans are, how engaged they are, spending money, going to bars, watching games, TV ratings, all those things. I didn't ask about Philly because I don't think any of their teams were going to be good this year.
Yeah, here's the we'll end with this. Here's the statement from the Canadians regarding Harris. GM Mark Bergevin announced on Monday that Harris will be returning to Northeastern University after discussions between the organization, Jordan, and members of his family. It was agreed this was the right course of action for his development. The organization is fully supportive of this plan. Jordan remains totally committed to the Montreal Canadiens for his future. That is until August 15th when he goes someplace else as an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's towing the right line here.
Yeah.
End of the day, this is problematic because the Canadians are loaded on defense. And so Jordan Harris is going to look and say, where the hell am I going to play? I'd say he's 85 to 90% gone. And he's a good player. He can play. I've seen him. He's a good skater. I think the offensive game that he brings will translate to some degree. I don't think it's going to be as high as it is in the NCAA, but he can play. But at the end of the day, this is going to be a situation like with the Flyers with Kalinick. If you noticed, Wyatt Kalinick has already played for the Blackhawks, Mike. Did you know that?
I didn't.
And let's see if I can get his number real quick. And this was a guy the Flyers gave up on, and I don't know. I think he might be a little better than Gustafsson. Just saying. Hold on. All right. Right now, Wyatt NHL.com. They are. I'm not going to say. Wyatt Kalinick. Here we go. He right now had 6 points in 5 games for Rockford, and he had 1 game. The Blackhawks played him a game. What do you think if the Flyers had him now? What do you think the odds are that they would have called him up? 100%?
99.5. Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's all their fault. Sometimes the player looks at it and says, you have too many guys. But they could use him, that's for sure.
All right. Great show. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For the departed Eklund, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz,